Hello everybody and welcome back to the Overlap Breakdown. This week I'm joined by Neil Harris, who's a former Manchester United youth coach for 20 years. And we're here to break down the changes that Ruben Amorim needs to make if he is to save his United job. Good morning, Neil. We had you on for the Xavi Simons to Spurs thing, and I think it aged really well. We did say that he was going to play out wide on the left, and that is where he's played the majority of his minutes at Spurs, so you do know a thing or two.
On the first rodeo.
Yeah, but no, we've got one today that's a little bit more negative, unfortunately, for United fans. And I think right off the top, we are going to talk about sort of what's going wrong at Manchester United in a massive tactical sense, but we're also going to offer solutions for the vast majority, because for me and Neil, we spoke before we come on to record today, there's a lot that's going wrong at Manchester United, but I think, in my opinion, there's also very easy tweaks that can be made by the manager to sort of save himself. And it seems like a weird one because he is absolutely adamant that he is not moving from his system, his principles, his formula. And, well, it's not good reading. He's got 34 Premier League points after 33 Premier League games, which is obviously the lowest by any manager after that same amount of games in the Premier League. And actually the second lowest is Ole Gunnar Solskjaer with 56. So we're talking about going from 34 points to 56 to the second worst. So this is absolutely crisis at the moment. And I know there was a Sky Sports graphic the other day which shown sort of every manager in Premier League sort of totality, existing Premier League clubs. So there's actually only 5 managers in Premier League history from existing clubs who have actually managed less points in the first 33 Premier League games. And yeah, it's not good reading. And no one's managed less in the last 15 years than Ruben Amorim in the first 33 Premier League games, which doesn't also just suggest that it's not working, but it also suggests that teams aren't letting it get to 33 games before a decision's made. And that is the big talking point. But we're here today to kind of provide a little bit more detail on what's actually going wrong. So me and Neil I've watched, unfortunately, every game of Manchester United this season, but we've both looked at the Brentford game because we thought it was sort of the worst example of everything. And I just want to ask Neil straight from the top, what are your sort of opinions on Manchester United so far this season, even counting in Ruben Amorim's tenure, the recruitment, and what he's asking the players to do this season?
So I think, straight off the bat, I was always brought up on that players dictate your tactics. There's a balance, there's a trade-off. Obviously, his stubbornness to want to play this formation is admirable to a degree, if it's your philosophy things. But for me, if you look at all the best managers, the best coaches down the years, they've obviously been able to adapt. You know, Carlo Ancelotti's, probably the most famous of recent years in terms of, allowing players to make their own decisions on the pitch. For a 3-4-3, you will have to be very, very dependent on your wing backs and your midfield. Okay, your 3 up the top, we'll talk about later, obviously, the 3 new signings and things. But I think if you then say Dorgu, Dalot, Casemiro, Ugarte, Fernandes potentially, obviously with Mainu being seemingly out of favour at the moment, I think that straight away sends the sort of vibes as to where, if you're dependent on this to bring creativity, to bring disruption, to bring interceptions, etc. I think it's going to be a very, very long sort of 90 minutes and continued game. We've looked at obviously the 3 centre halves. Sure, obviously we know he is a good footballer. Obviously trying to mould him into a left-hand side centre half, potentially protect him because of the fitness issues and obviously the demands of having to do that wing-back role in a 3-4-3. Obviously Maguire and De Ligt that bring their strengths in terms of their, obviously their ability in the air, and there is some dogginess and rigidness there, but it just doesn't work in terms of that. So, I think the fundamentals of what the club are doing at the moment and what the players are doing is it's just the basic things that they don't seem to be able to do. When I look at Manchester United, and I would say probably a lot since Sir Alex left, and obviously there was little bits with a few trophies and a very good spell with Ole, it's all off the cuff. There doesn't seem to be there's a reason why I'm making that pass there because I'm setting up the next thing. There's this pass is a trigger for a forward run, etc. from there, but just the basics really. So if we look at the first goal, and I'm sure we can provide a graphic there, You know, when I played, and you know, what I've taught the young players throughout my time coming through is that if there's pressure on the ball, okay, you can mark tight. So if we take it back to where the goal was, so Cunha actually probably may have been a foul. Dorgu, when I've actually watched it back, had he sprinted to get there was potentially a pass in for him there, but he was sort of ambling really. You've then got obviously Dello, who's high up the pitch. You've then got obviously Sesko, and Buemo's up here. Fernandez up here, Agarty's up here, Shaw is here, Maguire is here with the lad who scored the goal, and De Ligt is here. So straight off the bat, the ball is here when it's lost, okay? That's very, very open.
Yeah.
And you might say, okay, well, the ball's up that pitch. He didn't have wonderful possession. You know, he was obviously dribbling, like I say, I think had Dorgu gone in, he'd have been able to receive the ball in there. But when he's lost it, probably was a foul, it's come to Henderson here. Initially, and we'll come on to some stats in a minute there was no momentum to counter press straight away. There was nobody near enough to the player on the ball to potentially to block that, get his head down, not be able to force that pass. Obviously against Manchester United, most teams know now, they're very, very susceptible. So going back to what I said there, if there's pressure on the ball, you mark tight. There was no pressure on the ball. So he has to drop off. So the rule of thumb is, if there's no pressure on the ball, you sort of do 1.5 jobs, you drop off, you give yourself a bit of time. Ideally, Shaw and De Ligt are in here. Yes, they're okay, they're only marking one player, but you're denying the middle. Again, good centre halves are taught to deny the middle. You know, we're happy if they go out here. So straight away, you've got these two who are very, very wide, and you've got one here who tries to play offside when he's got his head down with good possession. That, for me, you know, is obviously criminal. One long ball in the back. Bayinda didn't cover himself in glory. No. You know, he backpedal, which I get, because you assess yourself within the goals, but then he drops back into here, which obviously allows the opportunity for the lad to score. You know, if he comes out here and makes the gap smaller, makes the goal look smaller, there's obviously less chance for him to score. And also there's a potential sweeping position for him, depending on the ball from there.
Yeah.
Just a very, very last sort of coaching point, because I know there's a lot of coaches that watch it and want to know about the game a little bit more as well, is if that player has his head up, he's typically going to play short. You watch it, the moment a player put his head down, obviously Beckham's, his famous things, Gerrard, Scholes, etc., he's going to play long. So as soon as he sees that head goes down,
he's got to be backtracking.
Yeah. He's got to be funneling in here. He's got to be funneling here. He's got to now backtrack. So his job is, and to be fair, it was a good run that he's got to just deny. So deny and just denying that.
Even if you block
delay.
Him.
Yeah, just block him, delay, and then you might get De Ligt coming in here. You might get Ugart, which we'll come on to, I think is a problem. You know, back tackling and obviously backpedaling to maybe intercept the ball from there. So just basics, sort of out of possession is wrong. I don't know, do you want me to go on to in possession?
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on one thing. Obviously, we covered Palace. Yeah. We covered Palace on the channel, and I think a lot of Man United fans, they're looking at the formation as to be like, why can't it work if he's doing that? Yeah. I just want to show Manchester United fans, I'm gonna go on the board, I'm just gonna go off, right? This is how Manchester United, right? This is how Manchester United mostly press. So if the ball is with the goalkeeper, and these are here, we want 3 narrow forwards, bring back the fullbacks, right? United gamble pretty much like this. And if it's not like this, it's pinned back, which means the wing backs are massively deeper. So we're relying on these two midfielders to jump and these two players to peel off to the wing backs. Now, I just want to let people know, in the Palace video where we covered their amazing now 18-game unbeaten run, they press in a completely different scheme to this. And I want to let people know what that scheme is. So in pre-season, Harry Maguire actually did an interview where he was talking about threading along the back four. So what it meant was if the ball is actually beat and it goes to this player, this wing back is capable of jumping and then we can go to a 4-4-2. If this player's here covering this, it looks a lot more natural to do that. For some reason, United have started this season, and this seems like it's always been this problem with Amorim. We see a little tiny tweak that looks decent, and then it goes. Because what's happening now is if the ball is worked out to the wing back, what happens is Mbeumo, Cunha, they just have to track back. They're not applying forward pressure. They're not forcing the ball backwards. They're actually running these really large distances. Whereas other teams who are playing this formation, like I say, no formation is the same. They're all completely different in terms of how a manager uses it. But Manchester United at the moment are getting their back five completely flattened out like this because the opposition are pinning. We've seen it and we covered it in the derby. The wide centre halves are not arriving into the press fast enough. They're not sharp enough. The cues aren't right. They're not understandable, even if for the players. And it's relying on these two midfielders to do so much, and none of them are reliable ball winners. And yeah, you can go on. I just really wanted to drill that home because I think the number one gripe with me at the moment with Manchester United is the 5-2-3 press. I cannot understand for the life of me how this is going to win the ball back, even if this player's stepping out all this way. I just don't see how it's a reliable way to win the ball back.
That was my favourite press. Is that in that there, and that was in a 4, by the way, as well. I would still want my fullback to go and do that, and then we'd swing round, and then this player would tuck in here. So we're trying to cut the pitch in half. But even in a back four, even in a back four, I would expect my fullback to be ready to go and do that there. So like you say, in a 5, you know, where do you want? Do you want pressure from behind, or do you want pressure in front? If you your defender, or if you're the player that's trying to get out, you're more than happy if the pressure's coming from behind. If you've had a good first touch, you're quick and you're athletic, and the play's in front of you, or somebody's coming at you, getting your head down, you've got to look a little bit shorter now. So it's very strange, and I'm not too sure. I think at times he's trying to protect certain players who are not as mobile.
I think this.
But for me, that's again, and we say, okay, players dictate your tactics and things. Well, okay. Would they be better in a 4?
Yeah, could we play 2?
Yeah, just play as a two centre half there, and then have mobile.
Get 2
there.
sitters in front.
Correct.
Just cover them like that instead of going to 3 centre halves. Yeah. I think I will say this. We're not just completely having it out with Amorim, to be honest, because I think a lot of people in the recruitment end were looking at sort of, you're bringing in a manager who, in his first couple of weeks in charge, was like, no, I'm not moving. And the fact that they looked at that and just went and signed 3 forwards and a goalkeeper without a spine. Yeah. And we're talking here about immobile centre halves. Like, don't get me wrong, I think De Ligt's had a decent start to the season, but you're asking De Ligt, if he's playing right centre half, to jump out onto these number 8s. Let's say it's Yarmouk for Brentford, very, very good, swivelly midfielder. That's not natural. It doesn't look right. And I think there's got to be a point for me. And do you know what? I'd have so much more respect for him if he just went, okay, we're getting beat in the press. You mentioned we had a stat. I'll try and show a graphic on the screen, but if I can't, we had a look at Manchester United's defensive actions in the game against Brentford. There was one, and that means a tackle, interception, clearance, sort of second ball win, everything. There was one in sort of the final third, and it was a doggy one around this area of the pitch. Yeah. That is not good enough. And I'd have so much more respect if it was just like, let's sit in.
Just go to a deep block.
Yeah, just sit in.
Just at this moment in time, just go to a mid block. Just say, okay, we're just gonna drop off there, because, like you say, I looked at it and I'm thinking, well, okay, if you've now bought 3 players who are going to occupy these areas, you've got Fernandes who's an attacking player as well, Dalot to come back in and mount in around those things there. Why would you not want to be high up the pitch anyway? And like you say, counter the counter, as we call it, and just win the ball back high up in here. But I watched the game and I was just astonished that when I went back to the stats, that there was 1 tackle here, I think 1 tackle here, and the rest were like you say in there. And there wasn't many interceptions, which shows for me that people's body positions and screening and timing is all off. And we'll just go back to the 3 that we signed then. You mentioned about the recruitment there.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think any Manchester United fan, when the signings of Mbeumo, Cunha and Sesko were obviously being made, I don't think there was any Manchester United fan that didn't think they've got to score more goals. The detail of having a back 3 is you've got to have 1 centre half. You go back to the Germans and the Dutch in yesteryear, being able to step in with it, or at least one of the wide ones done it. Now, Shaw's capable of it. De Ligt and Maguire aren't. Euro's probably capable of it.
But so young though, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're asking so much already.
And I think the trade-off with not having De Ligt and Maguire is obviously the being able to head the ball.
Of course.
Euro's obviously still got to improve on that. But so for me, it was this, and to not getting a ball-winning athletic midfielder to win there, to win the ball back, because in a 2 in here, Fernandes at times, he was the most creative player. I thought Cunha played well as well when I've isolated and watched Cunha's stuff as well, and he was coming into certain things. But Fernandes was the one that tried to get things ticking in there. He is a player that you can have in there because he can receive in tight areas, he can combine, he can switch the play, he can play forward. A damning stat in that game was that Bruno Fernandes did not make 1 pass to Sesko in the whole game, which is is criminal in there.
Would you want to go on to it in possession now? Because I think this is also a massive problem for me, because what I'm seeing at the moment, and we just spoke about it before we sort of went into the first segment, which off camera, which was static, just no sense of urgency. Whilst Neil's setting up the counters, I've actually got a quote here. So a lot of Man United fans, again, talking about Oliver Glasner. He said in his own words, "The system is not important, the habits are. The patterns, the way you want your players to behave on the pitch, that's much more important. I always look at what's best for the players I have. 4-4-2 is my favourite formation to play, but 3-4-3 is right for the players we have now." That is like a complete flip side of what Amorim's doing. And you said it before, I can't go against managers' sort of philosophies. If you've got a philosophy, you want to live and die by it, then it's up to the recruitment team to profile you as well as you profile your players. So they've got to set you up and give you the best hand to play games with, really. So I do sympathise, as we mentioned before, that they've not given him enough. The problem is I don't know what his principles are aside from the formation, the shape that the team plays. I'm not sure if we're trying to build up slow, sort of methodical possession. I'm not sure if we're more of a direct team, because it seems like a lot of the chances we score come from more direct plays. I'm not sure if we're a high pressing team. I'm not sure if we're a low block team, a mid block team. I don't know I'm not seeing the principles.
I think that's the most damning thing, isn't it? 15 months in, you start to see with certain coaches, certain managers, even Postecoglou, at least you sort of knew, and he maybe tweaked it, adapted a little bit and things, and Nuno at Forest, changed a little bit from what he was at Wolves and things. But I think that's the most damning thing, is that you just don't know. So when I was a coach, I'm still a coach, but when we spoke to people, we used to say to players, think forward, play forward, run forward. So that was the basic of a Man United team. Can you think forward? Can you play forward? Can you run forward? And then even at the younger ages, we would try to say to them, and obviously it was, as you went through the ages, it was, can you play through? Can you play around? Can you play over? And going back to what you just said there, and I've watched the Brentford game, I've watched a couple of other games there, we just spoke about that Fernandes didn't play to Sesko once. Yeah. He played a couple of times to Mbuemo and to Cunha and things like that, but most of it was here. So okay, I don't mind if we're going to play around, because we're setting a trap and it's coming in here, it's recycling, it's coming, it's bouncing, it's coming, we're setting around, and then because there's going to be a forward run in behind, or there's going to be a forward running behind, and there's a trigger in there potentially. Yeah. There wasn't. No. I can't say that, okay, we're going to get the ball wide quickly because we're going to get crosses into the box, there. I can't say that we're going to go over, as you've just said there, because we've actually got a striker now who does want to play with his shoulder facing his goal. Yeah. Obviously, Højlund loves to come in short a little bit, whereas again, for me, a little bit of a tweak would be say to him, I don't want you in here now, I want you running that way, because when I've seen your goals for Atalanta, you scored some. Yeah, exactly. I want you spinning and in behind, and then we'll have players backing you up. So just going back to those principles, I can't see it at all. So the timing and arrival of the wing backs was so off. It was so staggered at times, because I looked and I'd see Dorgu and he'd be tucked in here, and he'd be playing balls into Shaw in here, and then there'd be a little bit of a good possession. And I'm thinking, you need to get out here now. Even if you're not going to get it, you're going to occupy somebody here, which might free up Cunha, might free up Sesko and Mbuemo. And again, the same here. If you're gonna go free up in here, and all of a sudden you might allow some more passing lanes. Obviously, we talk about the 5 lanes on a pitch. Man United played in 3 the other night. He played in 3 lanes, and even when it went over to there, it was tucked across. It's so always defensively.
In the midfield, though, isn't it? It's not stretching here. It's not stretching there. They're trying to stretch, like, it feels like they're trying to stretch like a midfield 3. But the problem is like, if these two just go here and the wingers just sit in, and these can just stay there tucked in on 3. Yeah. I think one of the problems with me at the moment, especially with us, one of the big ones, is like the only tactic that I can sort of see, and this is actually made by the structure, which is obviously like a decent thing, is the sort of the getting +1s like on the back post. So if the wing backs here, if they can counter and they've got a 4v4 in the box, and this player goes to close this down and they shuffle across, then by design, they do actually open a little bit of space for the players here. The problem is, and this again comes down to where the players are being put, if this player is crossing the ball to this player, that's Patrick Dorgu and Diogo Dalot. It's not Cunha to Mbuemo. No. It's not, I don't know, like, do you know what I mean? And that's for me where I go, our biggest sort of chance creating like mechanism in the formation, in the structure, is for a wing back to cross to the wing back.
It's potentially getting the players that you don't want in the
Do you
area.
know what I mean?
100%.
I'm not seeing, as we just said there, if we just take it back here, I'm not seeing sort of, right, Dorgu into Cunha, Dorgu runs across, it's slipped in, and then Cunha's showing here straight away. It's nothing like that. It's completely different. And I think I'm gonna move on in a minute to talk about sort of what I think he should be doing. But the one thing that I can't stress enough is if we're building, it's actually more deeper. So United like to build. We've often said this on the channel. United like to build with their central centre-back in midfield, and they use sort of 2 ahead of that and then 2 ahead of that, and these are a bit wider. So these is one of the midfielders. This is usually De Ligt or Maguire stood next to a Casemiro, Bruno, and then you've got the other midfielder, Bruno Fernandes if it's him, and then the 2 forwards, sort of like Cunha and Bumo. That for me, it doesn't make any sense, because if we've got Amad Diallo who's playing right wing back, who often has been at right wing back, would it not make sense if this is Mazraoui, let's say, because Mazraoui's played right centre half, if De Ligt stands there, Mazraoui stands there, and you push on Amad Diallo, all of a sudden you've got a 4-3-3 build up, and it's profiled really nicely. Amad Diallo on the right wing, you could say that this is maybe Mbumo, this is Sesko, this is Cunha, you've got Bruno in between the lines, or even playing in midfield. You could play a 4-2-4, 4-2-3-1, it literally doesn't matter. But there's no way that is not better suited to the players. There's no way.
You've got a player who can potentially run, go to show, so he can come in and he can spin in behind potentially because he's quick enough. He's good enough to handle a ball that he could maybe roll inside or roll him outside, and potentially he's a ball carrier, so it gets the ball up the pitch. Again, the basic principles are fundamental. You want to get your best players, your most attacking and forward players who can handle the ball higher up the pitch, and you want to get the ball to them as quickly as possible. Yeah. But the slow, methodical build-up at times just doesn't lend itself to that.
And I think it's just like, for me, he's talking about he's keeping his idea the same. And if his idea is the formation, that's completely fine, right? We all know that formation is just a makeup of numbers. Yeah. The problem is at the moment is your formation is then moving into different shapes on and off the ball, where you've got De Ligt in midfield, you've got, say this is Amad Diallo. Amad Diallo being on the edge of your own box during build-up when he could be here, and he's not.
I don't think Mo Salah or Saka are doing that.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? And it just feels bizarre to me. And I think it's such an easy switch. All you have to do, drop the central centre-back back in. Right back is playing right centre-half usually for Manchester United. Mazraoui, Lenny Yoro's good enough at playing this. We actually seen him play here against Arsenal. This is Amad Diallo. He pushes on. Get your midfielder inside. Boom. You got 4-4-2. Got your left winger. Got a 10. This could be Bruno Fernandes, just off Sesko. A right winger over here, or in Mbumo. And it looks far better from a profile sort of game-to-game standpoint than whatever he's trying to do right now. And I think the stubbornness in itself, it's going to cost him because it's just, at the moment, I'm not seeing any tweaks. The same things we were doing against Ipswich in the opening game with Amorim are the same things that we saw against Brentford. And I think it's really worrying for me how the form's not improved. We're probably getting worse with more money invested into the team, and there is not one tweak within the system that works. And, well, he's not shown a tweak. I wanted to ask you, obviously, we're talking about sort of midfield balance. Now, you've coached Scott McTominay and you've coached Kobbie Mainoo. Do you not see a world in where, especially Kobbie Mainoo, for me, I'm looking for someone to get on the ball and work in tighter, smaller areas. And if he wants to control possession, which I think he actually really does want to do, does he not just feel like a slot in? Well,
when he came in against Brentford, him and Yoro, I thought it was a positive change. Again, probably a little bit too late. I think it was around the 66th minute. But what Kobbie gives you, is that ability to receive the ball in tight areas, because he's obviously got wonderful body strength. He can go both ways. He can drop the shoulder, dangle his leg, etc. But what Kobbie wants to do, Kobbie wants to engage players straight off the bat. again with Ugarte, he's quite happy to play in here, just to play here. What Cobby does, you know, which we want all good English midfielders to do, he can go both ways and he can engage the player. So all of a sudden now you are getting that, where players are going to have to, you know, come out and potentially either beat them himself or play, and you've taken somebody out of position. But as soon as a player gets the ball and starts driving, it affects players. It affects the players. It should affect the players that he's playing with.
Yeah.
But it also affects the players he's playing against, because if he starts driving into him, it's going to affect him. It's going to potentially affect him. He's going to maybe start denying the middle. It's going to affect him, which then allows triggers for potentially movement to come into here, or him staying high and for him to drop into here. So for me, you know, obviously a little bit biased, but Cobby being that low centre of gravity type player, he can carry the ball with distance.
Yeah.
You know, I think there's been not criticism, but people worry a little bit of him out of possession at times. But again, he's played with, you know, Casemiro's been a wonderful, wonderful footballer.
Yeah.
Is still a wonderful footballer, but obviously, you know, the legs, or with Ugarte in there, or with, you know, if you imagine Cobby with a Scott McTominay or, you know, a Roy Keane or whatever in the past, then that would really, really complement him well. You know, I think when he's played with Rice in there, it's complemented well for England and
that's
and
when I look
things.
at the recruitment again, and I just go, I don't know, we've got this young player, we've got a bit of midfield imbalance. You know, if he just dropped 3 into the midfield, you could play Bruno, Cobby and one, and you could have bought that one. Yeah. And instead of buying, you know, another attacker and I just feel it's really, really worrying times for Manchester United. Obviously, they play Sunderland at the weekend, and it's a massive game just before they go into the international break, which is famously known for managers getting sacked within there. But it's a really, really worrying sign for Manchester United. And I think after 6 or 7 games, however many we've played, it does feel that Manchester United are top on expected goals. Obviously, penalties have played into that. But we're 19th on expected goals against. And I just think, personally, when I watch the game, and I'm a massive fan of data, personally, when I watch the game, the team kicks into gear when it's already losing. And I feel like teams are now looking at United and going, if we sit back, you're not really going to create that many opportunities. I think City fought it in the derby. I think Arsenal fought it in the first game. Not by choice, but I think when they ended up finding that they were in a deep block, they can actually look at it and go, oh. That's all we have time for today on the overlap breakdown. Please let us know what you've made or what you make of Ruben Amorim's future at Manchester United. And join us next week for more analysis. So don't forget to like, comment and follow the channel. We'll see you next time.